Opening words by Matthew Johnson. For 5,000 years or more than 15,000 generations, human beings have been invoking spiritual power. My predecessors and yours have gathered together to make sense of their lives and their place in this cosmos. Kat will light our chalice today. Those of you at home are invited to light your chalice now. At times, our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude of those who have lit the flame within us and our community. Before we sing the opening hymn, let me remind our remote participants to leave yourselves muted. However, we want you and whoever is with you to sing as joyful as you can with us. Please stand in body or spirit and sing the opening hymn, May Nothing Evil Cross This Door, number 1. Good morning again, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist community of Cambria. We are glad that you have joined us today. Our UUCC sanctuary sits on land the Salinan and Chumash indigenous peoples historically inhabited. We honor their contribution to this region and give thanks for the opportunity to gather in faith on their unceded territory. Let us respect their legacy and protect their history as we occupy this sacred space. As Unitarian Universalists, we celebrate religious diversity and welcome all who journey in search of faith and spirituality. The UUCC is a lay-led congregation run by the democratic process. We invite speakers from different religious traditions and spiritual or scientific backgrounds, as well as community leaders to speak at our pulpit. We encourage presentations covering a variety of topics and areas of interest that connect us with the UU 7 principles and 6 values: justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, interdependence, and generosity. Today's service centers around the 4th principle. We affirm and promote a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. My name is Sue Davis, and I am your worship associate for this morning's service. Hi, Sue. Hello. Welcome. Good to see you all. I would love to extend A special welcome to today's guests and visitors. We're glad you've joined us this morning. If you wish, please raise your hand and introduce yourself if you'd like. Yes, there you go. Hi, Andrew. Nice to see you both. If you're not on our mailing list, please visit the UUCC website at uuccambria.org so that we can keep you informed about all our activities. Members and friends, please check out your What's Happening, the e-blast sent to you every week. This is a great way to keep in touch with dates and our latest news. If you wish to see this or any of the past Zoom services, the recordings can be found on the UUCC website and on Facebook. So again, good morning and welcome to everyone. The affirmation is both a recognition of the nature of this community as well as a promise to which we aspire. Let us now recite the UUCC affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, and to help one another. We set aside this time for any brief announcements that would be of interest to our community and friends. Please be succinct when announcing upcoming events or updates. If you have an announcement, please raise your hand. When Ben or I call on you, come to the podium or unmute yourself and speak. Dolores.
Board meeting tomorrow at 3 o'clock on Zoom.
Diane.
So we have a luncheon coming up, and that luncheon is given by the UUCC to all of our members. And I just wanted to let you know now that it's November 17th, so please put it on your calendars, and we will be voting on the new board at that time.
Robert.
There will be a men's group meeting tomorrow at 10 o'clock here in the sanctuary. And with the good offices of some of our members, we will have a Zoom option. Thank you.
Any announcement out in Zoomland, Ben?
No announcements in Zoom.
Next week, Andrew Boyd Goodrich, the manager of Camp Ocean Pines, will present Making Millions of People Happy. That sounds like a really good one. Now a word from our membership chair, Diane DeMarco.
Our membership is filled with committed people who contribute toward our shared goal of being in community with each other. Our membership is healthy, and our membership is growing. We are pleased to welcome 2 new members to our UUCC community. Would the following 2 people please come up now and stand on each side of me, Kelly Teven and Bill White. Just watch where you're walking. Take your time. Thank you. So we are so glad you have found us. We warmly welcome you to our community. We promise to do all we can to make this place a place of warmth and sustenance for you, where you will find acceptance, challenge, encouragement, and hopefully love. And we are hopeful you will get involved with the activities, which I think some of you have already done, that are offered here at the UUCC. In a moment, when I call your name, I'd like you to say, "I will." Will you offer us your unique presence and gifts? Will you add your name to the long history of Unitarian Universalists who spread hope with our living faith? Will you engage us as we seek to create a community and a world dedicated to love and justice? Kelly?
I will.
Bill?
I will.
You have also each accepted our covenant as a promise to stay in community when challenges arise, because we all have unique personalities that may from time to time differ with one another. We strive to embrace harmonious relationships as a spiritual practice, and to remind us all about that most sacred practice of how we treat one another, please join me in reciting the covenant together. We, the Unitarian Universalist community of Cambria, honor the bounds of community. Our covenant, a Latin word for come together, means a solemn agreement or promise from the heart regarding a course of action between parties. Our freely chosen interdependence is a mutual promise, whereupon we agree to be together in community, even if we harbor disagreements. It takes courage to create this beloved community through covenanting together. We promise to stay in the room, to stay a part of the conversation as best we can. We choose to honor this covenant when we make mistakes and continue to attempt in earnest to correct them. This covenant is a living document developed and approved by our congregation. By agreeing to these promises, I share in this vision, and I seek to do my part to be in loving relationships with one another. All right, I would like to now give you your official certificate verifying that you are now an official member of the Unitarian Universalist community of Cambria. Bill? Not yet. Okay. In addition, please receive this special spider plant, nurtured and grown by our president, Dolores Miera. Dolores, who came from Southern California, first saw this tradition when she belonged to the Newbury Park Unitarian Church and decided to carry on the tradition today. The spider plant symbolizes prosperity, promoting the life force and energy that flows through you and through everything. So may your plant proliferate and produce many offspring to help our environment, just as we know that you will generate new ideas, friendships, and personal growth for our community. So welcome aboard, Kelly and Bill. You may take your seat.
Thank you.
You're done.
We're done?
Yeah. But I'm not done. I have a little bit more. Adding 2 persons to our membership, we are now a total of 44 official members. May we all continue to work to embody our UU principles and values both within our congregation, in our wider community. I congratulate not just the new members, but our entire membership on honoring your commitment to stay in relationship, your generosity, and your service to the UUCC. Thank you.
And thank you, Diane, for being our membership chairman. Thank you. Joys and Concerns is a time for sharing personal celebrations, sorrows, reflections, or gratitude. This is a time for community building. Please exercise brevity. The collective flames of these candles embody all the joys and concerns which may have gone unspoken today, but are deeply felt in this community. Our first reading is an excerpt from John Muir's writings on Yosemite. Reflecting on his time in the High Sierra Mountains, John Muir wrote, "The Sierra Nevada's marvelous beauty, displayed in striking and alluring forms, woos the admiring wanderer on and on, higher and higher, charmed and enchanted, benevolent, solemn, fateful, pervaded with divine light. Every landscape glows like a countenance hallowed in eternal repose, and every one of its living creatures clad in flesh and leaves, and every crystal of its rocks, whether on the surface, shining in the sun, or buried miles deep in what we call darkness, is throbbing and pulsing with the heartbeats of God." A time for meditation. Welcome to this place of peace. May we find some moments of quiet contemplation. May we find the compassion and empathy we need to strengthen relationships. May we find ways to love each other well. May we not judge or condemn, but rather build a beloved community. The second reading is excerpts from John Steinbeck's The Red Pony. In the early 1930s, before he became famous, John Steinbeck wrote a novella entitled The Red Pony, set on a small ranch east of Salinas, California. Here are a few descriptions of the ranch. In the first passage, Steinbeck describes the path of a young boy, Jody, as he makes his way to the barn in the early morning. In the gray, quiet mornings, when the land and the brush and the houses and the trees were silver gray and black, like a photograph negative, he stole towards the barn, past the sleeping stones and the sleeping cypress tree. The fields glowed with a gray frost-like light, and in the dew, the tracks of rabbits and of field mice stood out sharply. In the second passage, Steinbeck describes the ranch after the first rain before Thanksgiving. The brown earth turned dark and the trees glistened. The cut ends of the stubble turned black with mildew. The haystacks grayed from the exposure to the damp, and on the roofs, the moss, which had been all summer as gray as lizards, turned a brilliant yellow-green. In the third passage, the multitude of the images of green and gold are alive in the first days of spring as Jody walks up towards a neighboring ranch. In the pasturage along the road, the wild oat heads were just clearing their scabbards. The warm morning sun shone so sweetly. On the fence, the shiny blackbirds with red epaulets clicked their dry call. The meadowlark sang like water. In the fields, the rabbits sat sunning themselves, with only their forked ears showing above the grass heads. Such poetry. As Jody notices, new life is everywhere. Lovely images of a small ranch near Salinas, California, in the early days of the 1900s. Please stand in body or spirit and sing "Shall We Gather at the River," number 1046.
Shall we gather at the river where bright angel feet have trod, with its crystal tide forever flowing by the throne of God? Yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful river. Gather with the saints at the river that flows by the throne of God. On the margin of the river, washing up in silver spray, we will walk and worship ever all the happy golden day. Yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful river. Gather with the saints at the river that flows by the throne of God. Ere we reach the shining river, lay we every burden down. Grace our spirits will deliver and provide our own and crown. Yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful river. Gather with the saints at the river that flows by the throne of God. Soon we'll reach the shining river. Soon our pilgrimage will cease. Soon our happy hearts will quiver with the melody of peace. Yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful river. Gather with the saints at the river that flows by the throne of God.
Thank you, Mary and Jan. That's an old classic. Very nice.
I didn't even know it was in the hymnal.
There, it is. It's in the UU hymnal. Nice. Wow. Today's talk is titled "A Sense of Place," to be delivered by John Loring. As some of you may know, John Loring is a retired architect and middle school teacher. You may not know that thanks to his great-grandfather, who arrived in Southern California in 1854 at the age of 14, John is almost a fourth-generation Californian. He supports a variety of causes from A to Y. That is, from the Architectural Conservancy of Los Angeles to the Yosemite Conservancy, A to Y. He and his wife, Sue, live in Agora Hills, close to where I used to live, very close actually, and have a house here in Cambria. From A to C, Agora to Cambria. Welcome, John.
I don't know why I do this.
Thank you. Thank you.
But good morning to you all. So, a few years ago, I met a guy about my age who had grown up in Newport Beach, California. And he had lived most of his adult life, however, in South Carolina. And so I asked him, well, don't you kind of miss life in Southern California? And he said, I miss the California of my youth, but not what it is now. And so that comment, something about that comment just intrigued me. So that's what I want to talk about. We've all had places in our lives that are special. Places help define who we are individually as people. Our identity relates in part to the context in which we live. So take a moment and think about some of the places that are important to you. We all have them. And that's what I want to talk about today, place, a sense of place. So part of what I'm about to say will be obvious or random, and I hope in the end it will offer some food for thought. But sometimes I think it's worthwhile to step back and take a look at what's obviously obvious. So, what is place? If you think about good architecture, and I mean really good architecture, the idea of a sense of place becomes clear. If you see a Zen temple, for example, it is probably in Japan. It has a certain location. You look at a French chateau or an Italian villa, and there's no doubt, one's in France, they can only do that there, and one's in Italy. Each has a sense of place. A prairie-style house of Frank Lloyd Wright can best be found in the American Midwest. Is that beautiful? Even in Cambria, at least once upon a time, when Sue and I started coming here in the early 1970s, there was a vernacular style going on that spoke to sense of place. They were wood houses, handmade wood houses, which created a specific idea of, where they were. Now this shot here, I'll give that one to Randy. That's not what I had in mind, but it too has its sense of place to it. You all know that house downtown. In religion, I checked my 4,000-page Interpreter's Dictionary of the Bible, and there was no listing for place, because it's too damn obvious, right? But from the Garden of Eden to Calvary Hill, the stories have settings, places. Great religions are often identified with place. Mecca, Jerusalem, Tibet. When Brigham Young and the Mormons finally arrived in Utah, he said famously, "This is the place." And they even engraved it on the monument there. This is the place. When the early Aztecs arrived in central Mexico, they saw an eagle holding a rattlesnake in its beak. And this is a depiction that would later appear on Mexico's national flag. And when they came upon that scene, they knew it was the place. And a great theocracy was born. So, places often have a spiritual side. Early on for Jesus, the place was the wilderness, 40 days. In his novella, The Red Pony, John Steinbeck has an episode where an old paisano man comes back to the rancho where he was born in order to die. He wants to go out where he had come in. This was a spiritual thing. However, he is refused his request profanely by the new ranch owner, an American. And so this old man goes off to the Santa Lucia Mountains of the Big Sur to die, a sacred place close to God. Sometimes significant places are created. Think Stonehenge or the Great Pyramids. In nature, sometimes mountains, rivers, or lands are designated as sacred places. Now, there's a film called Louisiana Story, made by Robert and Frances Flaherty in 1948, which I had hoped to have a clip of as part of this service today, but technically it was challenging. Anyway, in that film, in the opening sequence, we see this young kid, this boy, Louisiana boy, who on his little canoe floats through this magical, mystical swamp, and it's just captivating. It's 3 or 4 minutes of just this guy gliding through this swamp, and it's amazing. Every Sunday, Sue, or whoever is in charge, talks about the lands here as being sacred to the people who preceded us here. Okay, so there's also another type, which is a hybrid. A natural place is enhanced by something created by people. Now, in Mount Nebo, at Mount Nebo in Jordan, this is where Moses looked out across the Dead Sea to the Promised Land and where he died before he got there. This has been the site of several churches and monasteries through the centuries. So you have the high mountain and the man-made creations. If you go around the world to the lowlands of the Himalayas in Bhutan, the Tiger's Nest, a Buddhist monastery. Anybody been there? It's worth a trip. If not, just up the road from here, about 2 miles above Highway 1, near the settlement of Lucia, there is a beautiful Benedictine monastery and chapel called the Hermitage at Carmadallo. We discovered it by accident. They welcome visitors, and it would be an incredible place to retreat and to meditate. If you're not aware of it, it's in our neighborhood. But, here's a but, places don't have to be exceptionally architectural, spiritual, or natural, by the way. They may be quite ordinary. Consider Steinbeck's descriptions of the ranch in The Red Pony, which Sue read earlier. They are most ordinary, and yet special. And again, think about the places that are important to you. So, the first conclusion is having a sense of place is important. They become part of who we are, and there are three things I'd like to say about all this. First, it is important to acknowledge, appreciate, explore, and/or enjoy our special places. Mindfulness is the current term. Henry David Thoreau of Walden Pond said, "There is enough of interest to engage a person for a lifetime within a 20-mile radius of their home." Charles Darwin, after his voyage on the Beagle, returned to his home in England and spent much of the rest of his life studying earthworms on his land. Isaac Newton deduced the nature of gravity from a simple apple tree near his house. And the apple tree is still there, by the way, and alive. I bet you weren't expecting this, but if you're Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys, you write a poignant song about your room. Not only does it sell millions, but it speaks to generations. Then there's this guy, Claude Monet, the French Impressionist, who spent 43 years looking at water lilies in his garden in Giverny. That's kind of making the most of your surroundings. It's important to have mindfulness about a place. Okay, the second thing I want to mention, worth noting, it has to do with the idea of stewardship. And this is an idea that goes back to the book of Genesis. The idea of taking care of a place. This may involve heavy commitments to social causes or something as simple as picking up trash on a local beach walk. Stewardship. And then there's the ultimate place for which we need to be a steward, which is our planet. Okay. The last thing I want to lift up here is a philosophical side to all this. In Brian Wilson's autobiography, he talks about taking a girlfriend to his old family house in Hawthorne, California, where back in the day, the Beach Boys started, and also the Schwalbes. Live nearby, I guess, 20 blocks away, I guess. So Brian gets to the location only to discover that the home, the neighborhood have been replaced by a freeway. The home is not physically there, but remains present in his head, sort of like this guy from Newport Beach who misses the Southern California of his youth. So in this way, maybe Thomas Wolfe was right. You can't go home again. Not to the place and the life that once were. Places change. They have an ephemeral quality. But notice this. Other places don't seem to change. One of my favorite places on the whole world is a large granite rock on Lake Tenaya in the Yosemite High Country. I can't tell you how many years I have fished there with my family and friends. My kids and my grandchildren fish there now. Recently, I was surprised to discover an old photo of my long departed parents back in the early 1940s, standing on that very rock. That rock and its setting will be there long after I'm gone. My son and grandchildren will continue to fish there for however long. And that rock and that setting will remain unchanged. Here, we people are the ephemeral ones. But over the millennia in geological time, that rock and its setting will change. Not just as quickly as what we experience as change in our own lives. Everything, every place, ultimately is in process, some more rapidly than others. This is what we live with. It may make us feel a little insecure, but as Alan Watts wrote, there is wisdom in insecurity. The good news for us, I think, is that the places that we have and are important may be seen as making up an ongoing series of safe harbors along the way as we sail through our lives. Places to pause, get our bearings, enjoy, safeguard, and move on. Indeed, they help to define who we are, and so thanks indeed for a sense of place. Amen.
Thank you, John. I really enjoyed that. I too have photographs of my family in the same place in Yosemite for 50 years of worth. It's very special. Thank you for that. The morning offering will now be given and received. Please remember we are a self-sustaining congregation and provide all financial resources for our ministries. We recognize the spiritual value of generosity and invite you to participate. If you are viewing this service remotely, please use one of the methods shown on your screen. Thank you. Jan, and thank you, Beach Boys. I always love their concerts. We go right here in Vino Robles. Our thanksgiving for all gifts, our thanks for all gifts given and received for the work of this community. Please stand in body or spirit and sing the closing hymn, number 1054, Let This Be a House of Peace.
Let this be a house of peace, of nature and humanity, of sorrow and elation. Let this be our house, a haven for the king, an open room for questions and our inspiration. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of peace. Let all in this house seek freedom, guardian of dignity and worth held deep inside us. Let this be our house, a platform for the free voice, house of our sacred differences, here shall not divide us. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of peace. Let all in this house seek truth, where scientists and mystics abide in reverence here. Let this be our house, a house of our creation, where works of art and melodies consecrate the atmosphere. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of prophecy. May vision for our children be our common theme. Let this be our house of myth and lore and legend, a trove of ancient story and cradle of our tender dreams. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of
As we prepare to extinguish the chalice, let us recite the valediction. We have basked in the warmth and beauty of this flame and this community. As the chalice flame is extinguished, we shall carry its glow onward. Let us kindle new sparks with those walls and beyond. Please extinguish your chalice at home now. Now let's form a circle and join hands, and John will give us a benediction.
I go up here, right?
Yes, that's great.
That's cool. May we all depart in the spirit of John Muir, who found mystical delight in majestic nature. May we depart in the spirit of John Steinbeck, who found extraordinary beauty in the ordinary surroundings of a small California ranch of the early 1900s. May we depart in the spirit of those great architects and religious leaders who understood the special uniqueness of place and sought to express it. May we depart in the spirit of those kids in the sand cleaning up the beach. May we depart in the spirit of Thoreau, Darwin, Newton, Monet, and even Brian Wilson, who drew inspiration from their everyday worlds. May we depart in peace and beauty as we enjoy the safe harbors of our lives. Amen.
Thank you, John. That was lovely. Thank you.